What's going on, guys? I'm Fuller with Custom Offsets TV on the YouTube, and today we're going to dig into some of my favorite trucks throughout the decade. So we're going to look at 2020, 2010, the 2000s, the 90s, and the 80s, and I'm going to share with you guys some of my favorites from those years. So some of these were really tough to pick just one truck. So kicking things off, for 2020, it's a tie right away, of course, off the bat. So I was really torn between these two trucks. First one is going to be the Ford F-250 Tremor. So I really like that Ford is moving into the off-road market with their 3/4 ton, because that's something that you've really only seen Ram do with the Power Wagon. So I think it's nice to see some more offerings there. The body style of the F-350 and F-250s has always been something that I've liked ever since they switched to the Illuma-Duties. And in 2020, you got an updated grille. The Tremor package just adds a really nice blackout to the grille. It's got black housing headlights. It's a little bit better designed for off-road use, but it's still a 3/4 ton that can tow a whole bunch. And they have the brand new 7.3 liter engine. I think they call that Godzilla, actually. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the tuning potentials are, and also what we might be able to do with some forced induction. So I'm really excited for that truck. It's probably going to be my favorite for the next 10 years. Also in 2020s, we have the Ram 1500. So they refreshed it in 2019, but obviously in 2020 it's still the same truck. And I'm really digging the new Rams. You know, I wasn't always a huge fan of Ram, but then the interiors, they just stepped their game up big time. You got the huge screen, all really nice pieces. The screen on the dash itself, you get the option for factory air ride. You know, they had that in the Rebel as an option just a few years prior, but you know, now you can just get it on the regular trucks too, in the limited trims or whatever it is. I'm not an expert on Rams. I don't know every single trim they have, but it's a nice, sharp looking truck. You can still fit a lot more wheels and tires on there because they offer the larger wheel openings and the wheel wells, so that's pretty neat. And yeah, I just think they did a really good job with it, and anybody who owns one will tell you 2019 Motor Trend Truck of the Year. So in the 2010s then, my favorite truck then, and still one of my favorite trucks, was the Ford Raptor. So I kind of alluded to it a little bit before, but this was their obviously half-ton pickup designed for off-road, desert, Baja, kind of use. Now, you aren't technically supposed to jump them from factory, and a few people have tried, and there's been a couple of, tweaked frame issues here and there, but we'll breeze past that. They stuffed a 6.2 liter V8 into a half-ton truck and made a bunch of power. The very early ones you could still get with a 5.4, but don't do that. Just get the 6.2, save yourself the hassle. You're gonna want it anyway. There's people out there throwing superchargers on, making 700 plus horsepower, and it was just a raw American big V8, sounded really nice. The truck itself handled really well. That's the thing with the Ford Raptors. On the street, the suspension is super soft, so it drives like a Cadillac, because they use that soft suspension for off-road purposes. So then you take it off-road and you still have a really good handling, good performing truck, and that's why it's one of my favorite trucks from the 2010s. Now in the 2000s, I think my favorite truck, we're gonna go to Ram again. And Dodge, Ram, Fiat Chrysler Group, the whole thing, they've always been the people to push the envelope when it comes to horsepower numbers. You've seen, the Hellcat, the Demon, they got cars with 1,000 horsepower. You've got the TRX that's gonna be coming out probably in the 700 plus horsepower range for a pickup truck. It's just absolutely insane. And of course, Ram couldn't just leave their 1500 alone. They also, as you know, have the Viper. So they took the 8.3 liter V10 out of the Viper and they stuffed it in a pickup truck, gave it a manual transmission, and they were super, super fast. Came with a little wing on the back, which I think is a little bit comical, but in the mid-2000s, the SRT10 Viper was probably the coolest pickup truck on the market, at least in my opinion. So in the 90s, this was another one that kind of had a tie. They're both from the same brand. They're both Chevys. The first one being the 454 SS. So 7.4 liter, big old V8, shoved in a half-ton truck, geared more towards that sport truck kind of feel. They had, cool designs, cool decals. It was the heartbeat of America truck. And when you put a big V8 in that, it just makes perfect sense. And like I said, they're fast too and kind of sporty. On the same token, GM also had the Cyclone and the Typhoon. They kind of go hand in hand because it's the same power plant, but one's an SUV, one's a pickup. They were really the first people, I think, that kind of thought about putting forced induction on a motor for a pickup truck from factory. That really didn't come back until lot more recently where it kind of caught on. Back then, it was kind of a wild and crazy idea. They made a whole bunch of horsepower there too. They sounded really unique, but it didn't really catch on a ton back then, so there weren't a ton of them made. They weren't super popular, which now causes the prices to be like, if you want to pick one up, you know, a used one secondhand, it's like 30 grand, which I'm pretty sure is more than what they cost brand new. Now in the 80s, I had a tough time choosing here, but I felt like if I picked anything other than a square body Chevy, that everybody would be mad. So in the 80s, square body Chevy got a little bit of a refresh, updated to slightly more modern styling. A lot of the changes in the 80s were really actually, you know, intended for helping fuel economy, because in the late 70s it kind of had like a fuel crisis thing going on, so they were like starting to round more things off, and that's kind of what gave the 80s square bodies a little different character than some of the last ones. It's also the first years that they started putting in the 6.2 Detroit diesel, which only made like 150 horsepower, so it's not cool by the sense of power, but it paved the way for the Duramaxes and whatnot that we have now. Even though they're so far different, it was just, you know, it was the start of something that grew into something completely different, but now they're really, really awesome. So had to go with the 80s square body trucks from Chevy and GM. So those are some of my favorite trucks from throughout the decades. You can go through in the comments below, let us know your favorites for 2020, 2010, 2000s, 90s, and 80s. If you want us to do this again and go back even further, we definitely can. Just let us know down in the comments below. If you want to check out anything wheel starter suspension for pretty much any vehicle out there, you can do that at customoffsets.com. Peace.